you do yourself and the employee a disservice by just taking that work out of their hands.
Trust but verify. Hey, it's Brett Chittum with Lawrence Technology Services, and I'm here with
Jason Slagle from CNWR. How you doing today, Brett?
Oh, I'm having so much fun. It's it's before the midweek. We're kind of got things going, and I had actually sent this topic we're going to talk about today to you over the weekend, and I
Yep.
think it stems from, and I'm going to throw out to Finn a nice little go for Connor when he posted about on LinkedIn about an employee he has in the IT industry and the things he allowed to happen to allow that employee to become a rock star. And I think it's important to as you work with and as you're a boss, quote unquote, or an employer, that you help your employees grow. Employees should be better off when they leave you than when they were when they came to you, right? And so I guess we're talking about 3 ways to help your employees grow. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And you touch on a very interesting point there, right? Like there are some amount of employers that seem to be afraid of growing their employees because they're
Mhm.
afraid if they grow them, they will leave, right? Like, but I mean, that's just growth, right? We should
Right.
celebrate people getting better and moving on. And if you don't have the right seat for them to elevate into, right? Like then either drive your growth to create that seat or accept the
Hmm.
fact that that you've done well and they've outgrown you and start with the next one, right? Like it's not a great thing, I don't think, to try to hold people down because you're afraid they might leave.
Right. And most of us as MSPs and in the IT industry, we're not these large companies, right? The growth within our companies can only go so far, unless you allow them to become owner, right? And
Yeah.
allow them to become, the boss of you in essence. So growth can be limited. So what do we do
Yeah.
to help stem growth within our industry and within our employees? So, it's 3 ways to help your employees grow. And I want to start with the first one: listen and learn. Because I think sometimes, you've heard the adage, we have one mouth, two ears.
Hmm.
We're supposed to listen more than we talk. And that's hard for me sometimes because I like to talk. But, in my previous business ownership, I really, really had to listen to my employees. You hit on it, and I'll let you talk about the gap thing. But it's you got to fill, and you've got to bring people in that help you,
Yeah.
and you learn from them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I also like to talk, and so I have trouble with silence, right? So
Hmm.
I have this tendency in a conversation, if a pregnant pause appears, I will fill it, and I have been making a very concerted, very active effort to just shut up, sit back, and listen more, and have found that when I successfully do that, I tend to receive a lot more data about a problem I'm noodling
Hmm.
on, which informs a better decision, right? It's I was trying to figure out a good time to bring it up. You sent this to me on Saturday, and we're a traction shop, right? So this is like the traction book
Yeah.
on managing and how to be a great boss, and uh, I've done a combination of reading it and audiobooking it, and I actually finished it on my long run on Sunday. So it's actually
Mm.
very apropos. We're talking about that now, and but that's one of the things they really cover, and that I really agree with is that when you're having conversations with your employees, you should lead with them telling you what they think
Yeah.
the problem is or the issue is, and you should resist the urge to one, interrupt them, and two, to start talking when they pause, because it's very often the case that they're pausing while they contemplate telling you something they're reluctant to tell
Hmm.
you. And if you let that pause hang out there for 15 30 seconds, then they might fill it, and you might learn information that they've been wanting to tell you that they just haven't gotten the courage, or whatever the case is, to bring it forward. And if you fill that gap and you just start talking, then they never will.
Right. Let's face it, employees there is some fear in bringing information to their bosses and
Yeah.
to their leader. I want to call it leader because it's a leader is a better
Mhm.
term than a boss, right? And and leaders help people. They're at the charge in the front to get their
Yeah.
people going, and sometimes they're having to push from the back to get people moving, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
think in this case, leader works.
yeah.
Account lead. So you have to. So in the traction world, we have three, right? You lead, right? You
Mhm.
manage, when those are two separate things. And then you hold people
They are.
accountable, right? So, leading. I think in this context of this conversation, lead is the good, or leader is the good word to use.
Absolutely. You talk about that pregnant pause, right? And a lot happens in that pregnant pause. Um, and a lot goes through your mind, but you hit it
Mhm.
point blank that they probably have something else they want to tell you, and they won't if you continue to talk. It's a sales technique too. The pregnant pause is
Oh yeah,
you stop, and the first person who talks loses, right?
yeah.
And that's kind of a it goes hand in hand, I guess, when you think about that. Listen and learn from your employees, because I think that's why you bring people on, right? You've got to be able to learn from them and their experiences and stuff. So number two, be a better advocate.
Yep.
Is that sometimes hard to do?
No, actually, this is probably the one that I struggle with the least, right? Like
Okay.
when I'm dealing with clients, it is often the case that to a client, I will celebrate an individual win, right? And even to our employees, I try internally, I struggle with it probably a little more, but externally, I very much will protect my people. If they do
Hmm.
something wrong, it's my fault or our fault, right? But if they do something right, it's them, right? They
Right,
do it.
right.
So I think that's part of advocating. I think there's more to advocating than that. You have to advocate for resources that your employees need. You have to
Hmm.
advocate for everything, right? Like we were having a conversation last night about MSP GeekCon with on one of the ConnectWise calls, and one of the people was saying that their employer just they'll pay for the travel, but they have a hard time paying for the conference stuff. And at some point or
Wow.
another, your direct manager has to be an advocate that, like, hey, this is growth, right? Like I've advocated that, and we added it to our handbook. Now that I'm the guy in charge, right? Like a stipend for everyone to take every year to actually educate themselves, right?
Hmm.
And it's important that we are good advocates for our employees.
Well, you got to think about it. It's also advocating for them for their growth as well,
Yep.
because sometimes, and I mean, I've had employees that when they first came to me, they were kind of meek, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
didn't like to break out of their shell, and helping them and advocating for them to do that, because I believe if your employee feels that you have their back,
Yep.
they will start to speak up more. They will start to kind of give more knowledge to the company, right? They will start
Yeah.
to impart their wisdom. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, we very much foster a culture of well, debate, but that you bring your ideas to the table, and there are no stupid ideas. We
Right.
will beat them, right? But in the end, the solution we arrive at usually isn't directly any one person's idea, right?
Mhm.
Like one of my IT superpowers is the ability to take a system or something somebody has described, and usually relatively quickly figure out where it's going to fall apart.
Right.
Right. So it's like I am really good at thinking of the edge and corner cases that people don't
Mhm.
think about. And so somebody brings an idea to the room, and I bring up an edge or corner case, or now my people are
Mhm.
starting to do it. I bring up an idea and they bring up an edge or corner case, and it's like, huh,
That's awesome. They
I
throw it
didn't
right
think
back
about
at
that.
you.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, and but it helps. It's great because in the end, right? Like now we have additional things that were probably going to bite us that we've
Mhm.
considered, and we can you know engineer around in some fashion.
Oh, absolutely. That's funny. Because when an employee throws back something at you that you taught them, it's a proud moment, but it's
Yeah,
also
proud.
a humbling moment, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's like, dang it,
yeah.
they threw it back at you.
My kids do it, and it's like, man, I am really frustrated by this, but I am kind of proud at the same time.
It's like, oh my gosh, they actually learned, but then they used
Yeah.
it against me. No, that's a good thing to do. Because when those employees come back to the whole aspect of things, it's going to be, they're going to look back at working for you or for somebody and
Mhm.
go, were they a good leader? Did they allow me to grow, and did they allow me to become the person I should be and can be?
Yeah.
So being an advocate's important. Well, let's go to three. Allow
Sure.
them to create change.
Mhm.
Ooh, talk
Yeah.
about that.
So
You
this
you had
is
a good one.
yeah, I mean, this is where, it comes into me is that, like, especially in small orgs, right? Like, I thought we were 17. We are actually 19 people now.
Wow.
Yeah, with our most recent, I mean, I've hired three this year.
Mhm.
A help desk, a bookkeeper, and a web developer. And even at 19, uh, I can't have managers
Mhm.
that know everything, right? So one of the things that I do is I hire people that help fill gaps. Now,
Right.
in like the tier one, the help desk role, that may be more limited, right? Like because
Mhm.
those people are very process driven, and they're the beginning of their career path, but they still have input, right? They can
Right,
still
right.
drive some amount of change. But as you move up in the organization, I don't even allow people to create change. I expect people to create change, right? It's
Yes.
I
Yes.
very
Thumbs up.
much I very much want uh, everyone involved in the processes and procedures that everyone
Mhm.
has to live through, right? Because for a couple of reasons, right? One, generally, I'm hiring somebody with more domain specific knowledge than I
Mhm.
have in a given area, right? Uh, and additionally, they're the ones that have to live with the outcome of it
Yeah.
if we're defining a process, right? So, like, I very much want and to a certain extent expect people to have input on processes that directly affect them.
Well, we were talking about this pre-show, and it
Hmm.
was we were looking at failures. Sometimes we have to allow our employees to fail to learn, right?
Oh, 100%. The book that I just finished, right? Like the
Mhm.
How to Be a Great Boss book, one of the things that it covers is as a good boss, you can't carry the monkey of an employee, right? So if
Mhm.
there's an issue or there's a problem that directly falls into that realm of responsibility, you can help, but you do both yourself and the employee a disservice by just taking
Yeah.
that work out of their hands and doing it yourself, right? Like they can't, failure is part of the process. And so
Mhm.
your job
Yeah.
as a manager and the boss is to provide them a safe space to fail in, right? So
Mm.
like you can't allow them to jeopardize the company with failure. So you need to set up a culture and a system that allows them to be able to fail without having dire catastrophic consequences. And if they are in a position where the failure could create those dire catastrophic consequences, then this is an opportunity for some sort of coaching, shadowing, or co-learning, right, to try to grow them in other ways.
Right. I mean, you get that big client and they're
Yep.
trying to create a system for that client or a storage solution or network integration type work. And if you got, sometimes you have to trust that they can do it, but you
Yep.
also have to trust but verify, I guess is the
Yeah.
word I was looking for. Um, but yeah, allowing them, to create change, to grow, to be able to actually, here's one thing I know is as an employee and an employer, I've been both, and I like both roles to tell you the truth. Is that when you allow somebody to create change, they're more apt to follow it as well. So when
Yep.
I would work with in my business in the insurance industry, and I wanted to create some change or change a process around or do some moving of employees from different offices that I had, um, I would ask questions. And I would get everybody together and I would say, oh, so these are the things we have to do. How do you all think we can get this to happen? Because they may
Yeah.
have better ideas than I do.
They often have better ideas than I do.
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, we are one person, right? It's
yep.
about multitudes of people that can create change. We as one person can maybe create change in our own little sphere, but it takes a multitude of people to create that change. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways,
Well,
what
we're at
else you
15
got?
minutes. Nah,
Yeah,
that's, I
we
mean,
did.
that's largely it. I've got that, parabole that I think applies to
Mhm.
this, which is, a man is on the edge of a river. This came from my fitness group, so I don't take credit from it at all. But a man is at the edge of a river, and he sees a child in the river, and the child's drowning. So he jumps in and saves him, and he pulls him out. And the next thing you know, there's another child coming down the river, and pretty soon we have 2 or 3 guys at a river just constantly swimming and saving all these drowning children. And suddenly, one of the men gets out, and the guy asks him, "What are you doing?" The guy goes, "I'm going upstream to tackle the guy that is throwing children into the river." And sometimes we have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, especially as managers, and allow the people below us to be saving the children while we're
Mhm.
trying to deal with the man upstream that is causing them to appear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you become the leader they start to respect
Yep.
because of doing that. So,
Yep.
absolutely.
And I believe that is from a book called Upstream that is going to end up on my reading list here sometime soon.
All right. It's funny. We talk a lot about books that you have read or I've read, and it's important to understand that we always have to be active learners in what we're doing. And being in this business or any business is not easy, and there's always a change, right? The only constant in life is change, right? And
Hmm.
so we need to be reading what other people have experienced so that
Yep.
we can move forward and become better leaders,
Yep.
better employers, better employees. So, yeah,
So that begs the question: do we create the business technicalities reading list of things that we've read and enjoy? I'd leave your comments below as to whether you think that's a good
ab-
idea. Because I mean, I consume a ton of either audiobooks or written books, and I'm certainly always looking for new ones, and I'm always willing to share what ones I liked.
the Business Technicalities Book Club. Actually, the editor that edits this stuff actually has said that we need to do book reviews because we talk about them so much. So,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I think good content. Thank you
Hmm.
all for listening this far and being a part of Business Technicalities in some way, shape, or form. We learned from you, so tell us what you want us to talk about down in the comments. And anything from you, Jason?
No, I'm just excited. I think I get to see you, what, 2 days? Open
Yeah,
house.
Thursday we're
So
coming down to have some fun.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
So looking
Well,
forward to that.
everyone, yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, guys, make it a great day.
Cool. See you later.